admit that I am deeply concerned, but not because I think we're going to lose, but because I'm really concerned that there exists a team that contests the idea that stability in a country, that reconciliation for that country, and that national freedom for that country are not in someone's best interests. And those are the three arguments I'm going to bring to you today. And my second speaker is going to come and talk to you further about how we create an African leader and we get more accountability in the international community. So essentially what we bring to you today as side proposition is that we can't change the past, but we can create a better future for Kenya, and that is what they did when they pulled out. So essentially what our line is that we think Kenyatta specifically shouldn't be prosecuted, but moreover we say that if they can prove he should be, and that is their burden in today's debate firstly, then we say why they also have to show us why it needs to be right now and why not later. But let me deal with some context to make that clearer. So firstly, when we're talking about this withdrawal, it's not a permanent thing here. So essentially what the withdrawal actually is it's a deferral, right? So Kenya intends to return to the international community when the international community stops focusing only on Western issues. That's incredibly important in today's debate. But even so, we say he shouldn't have been prosecuted. Moreover, if we're talking about what's going to happen, we said that if Kenya hadn't pulled out of the ICC, we can see that the following definitely would have been tried, right? So we're talking about Kenyatta, we're talking about William Ruto, we're talking about Josh Sang, and several other members of the leading party in Kenya. They would be put on trial, and that's an issue in this debate. So it's many people of the ruling party in Kenya. Thirdly, we say that we need to consider what exactly it means to be tried. We say that even to just be tried, even if you aren't convicted, and they also have to show us why that's a good thing, but we say that even if you aren't, that even being tried means that those individuals are taken to The Hague for a minimum of 2 years and can't access their country. So it's not like they can just travel back and forth. That's not true. But fourthly, if we're looking about the history of what actually happened in Kenya, we can see that about 1,000 people died in 2007. But that was because of a militant organization called Muniki that was only tied to Kenyatta and his party in terms of their funding, in terms of Muniki funding that party. That's the tie there. So he wasn't the direct cause of those issues. He's being charged with not paying as much attention as he potentially maybe should have. But moreover, what we tell you is that Kenyatta was voted in freely in the past elections. We think that's incredibly important to remember in this debate. He represents the majority of Kenyan people. But moreover, we say that he is the son of the liberator of Kenya. And finally, we also bring to you that since Kenyatta has come into power, there has been peace in Kenya since he was voted in 2013. So those are all important issues of context, right? But let me get on to my substantive value here. So essentially the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is stability. So essentially what we bring to you here is that we harm Kenya in a utilitarian fashion, right? Because we harm the stability of that country economically, politically, and socially. So firstly, we say that once we prove this, we're already winning with just this argument. But let's just take a look at exactly how this happens, right? So you're removing the president from that country, either permanently or for a little while. So what we say here is that a president is incredibly valuable to a country. They're not just one person. Moreover, we say it is most of their party. But why is the president specifically valuable? Because we think that the president has a specific role in a country. They have to make important decisions regarding economic policies and regarding social policies. They also have a veto over those decisions. So it's incredibly important that that person is there making those decisions. Otherwise, those things can't necessarily pass. That's incredibly important. But moreover, we said that a president is important to the country in which they rule because of what he represents. A president is important in the same way that a flag of a country is important. That figure embodies what the country stands for. And what that then means is that that creates some kind of national pride, which you harm the identity of several people within Kenya, so no, you're not in their best interest. When you remove that president, you not only harm them functioning physically, but moreover, we say that you harm them in terms of what they actually represent as a country and in terms of their national pride. Moreover, we say that because he was voted in, we think that what's in his interests are what's in the interests of Kenya, because he represents the interests of Kenya. So unless you're going to contest that Kenyatta specifically wanting to pull out of the ICC was a bad decision for himself, we say you're losing this debate already. So that's incredibly important. But moreover, we say that because he was voted in by the majority, if he's then removed from power for a while, we don't know who's necessarily going to replace him. That's going to create some kind of political instability, especially considering that several of his deputies are also in some way tied to this, so they would be taken out too. That means we're going to have somebody else in power, which we think wasn't necessarily created. That's going to create a power vacuum. That's going to create instability within the society and backlash in the society. Moreover, we say it's going to create a policy shift, right? So Kenyatta's actually been a good president in terms of creating economic freedom in that sense. He's drastically improved their economy. And in terms of the East African development community, right? He specifically, as himself, funded that idea. So that's incredibly important. But why can't somebody else just fulfill those policies for him? We say because what's paramount is the relationship he has with other people within the international community to actually create that. So you're going to create instability it would create instability for the country if they have that. So that brings me on to my second argument. But before I do that, I'll take Sam.
Assuming but not conceding that Kenyatta is innocent, then surely an innocent verdict would just legitimize his government and lead to more stability because it recognizes the ruler in his country and the international community.
Okay, but all you do in the process is tell the whole of Africa that the international community only cares about trying African people and that American people who potentially are much more guilty, like Bush, don't matter. That's incredibly important. We have to care about the reason Kenya pulled out in the first place. Please deal with that in your debate. So that brings me on to my second argument in terms of reconciliation, and this deals with their idea of punishment, right? So what we bring to you here is that what might be normal in terms of what we like when a crime might have happened isn't necessarily in the best interests of Kenya themselves. And this is important because it shows you that they can't always be prescriptive in their ideas. They have to analyze why it's specifically important. So we say that he brought peace when he came into power. That's incredibly important. So while there was some kind of violence in 2007, since he's been in power, that violence has gone down. You take him out, and there's nothing stopping that from coming back. We say reconciliation is important because it means less violence for everyone. And that's why we say we should move on from the issue and not specifically pursue it. That's problematic because that just brings those wounds back to the surface. That's something we're going to have to deal with in today's debate. Moreover, we say he's a good leader because he's a hero and a symbol for bringing back that peace. So we say that creates buy-in to the government. That's not going to work when you remove him. That's going to create more instability, and that's going to harm reconciliation. So we tell you that moving on is important, and there isn't a specific need for punishment in this situation, because punishment is only valuable to the people who are supposed to benefit from that justice. They don't want it to happen, therefore there is no value in the process. So we say that more importantly, his aim was to unify the country, so we say that that's a good thing. But that brings me on to my last and shorter argument in terms of neocolonialism and sovereignty. So essentially what we bring to you here is that the international interests, in terms of international norms and laws, are in fact just Western norms and laws, right? So we say that including this into the Kenyan group is going to hurt them, so it's a good idea for them to have pulled out in the first place. So this is the third reason they need to tell us that we're not in the best interest of the people. So firstly, we say it's problematic when hegemonies have control. Why? Because we think that that group gives one group more power over another group. We like when people can self-autonomize because we think they know what's in their best interest. They're the only ones who've experienced that. So everybody has their own different kinds of interests. So we say that harm and benefit aren't necessarily always objective, right? So we think that what's necessarily an international norm and maybe supposedly objective in that case isn't necessarily true because subjectively that could be harmful to Kenya. So we say Kenya should be able to legitimize their own idea of what's harmful and their own idea of what's beneficial because they're not going to benefit from something even if you tell them it's benefit if they don't believe so. That's why we think they shouldn't be forced into these international norms by the international community. So we tell you that neocolonialism isn't a good thing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want stability for Kenya, if you want reconciliation for Kenya, and if you want them to be free from the hegemonies of the international community, you're definitely on our side of the house.